Hi, my name is Tom Burris, and today we're going to talk about how Over IT is a leader in Esri and GIS field service management integration. So everything that Over IT does, we do with a map-centric approach, and that means for your mission-critical utility business, it gives you that single pane of glass from a scheduling and an execution perspective in order to make things a lot easier, safer, and more precise. So let's explain what we mean by that. First off, there's out-of-the-box adapters to Esri. This is mission critical GIS information that houses asset information, customer information, and other network specific data to get your business done, make scheduling decisions with that situational awareness. On top of that, there's other adapters to leading CIS systems and outage management systems, as well as enterprise asset management systems such as Maximo. Now you can bring in people data and calendar data from HR and crew callout systems, as well as project management data. So very powerful in order to really speed up that integration process and really de-risk that implementation since we have that proven track record. Now, why should you look at Over IT as a thought leader and a best practice leader from a GIS perspective? So first off, I want to point you to the number of specific GIS Center of Excellence engineers. So out of 477 people in our customer success group, we have about 50 of those dedicated specifically to GIS. So this is all of those thought leadership projects, the innovative projects, and they're constantly thinking day in and day out, how can we improve the lives and our uh, efficiency of our customers by integrating GIS data? So things like 3D, things like building information management systems, things like network tracing, offline, a lot of different capabilities that we'll talk about throughout today. And then you'll see it's a well blended organization across research and development and product as well. That there's a lot of folks dedicated specifically to GIS, graphical information systems. So, very uh, important part of a utility, and we don't take it lightly. We invest very heavily in this area. Now, there's a number of different facets of our GIS offering. Number one is those embedded field service management solutions with GIS. The other is those cross industry solutions. And the third is consultancy. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. So those embedded solutions, so things like bringing in 3D models in order to visualize that data and interact with that data and see where those fiber lines are, see where those network lines are in order to make those scheduling and planning decisions. The other is from a scheduling optimization perspective. So bringing in things like weather, things like traffic, things like fire data that we need to know about from a planning perspective and a catastrophe management perspective. Things like territory planning and territory optimization. Which resources do you place in which territories in order to optimize your operations based on the workload, based on the locations? And then we get into mobile empowerment. So how can you empower the field with a offline first mobile app that can work in low connectivity or no connectivity at all and do things like network tracing to see the upstream and downstream assets of an affected um, valve that they're out in the field and they're called to an outage job, or things like redlining and being able to in an offline state be able to see those work packages associated with those work orders for construction, look at those design layers, make those executive decisions in the field, denote those from a redlining perspective, and send them in the back office for approval to our GIS layers to eventually make it into the as-built layers. Things like AR collaboration. So augmented reality just means that now we're embedding those GIS layers on top of real life 3D. So imagine a technician out in the field, whether they're on their iPad or in a hands-free environment where they can look at all the underground and above ground pipes and make those decisions before they start a dig site, right? From a safety and a compliance perspective, we're ensuring the field gets immediate interaction with those layers in order to get the best situational awareness. We talked about weather before. Why is this important? Well, now you can bring in not only your GIS layers specifically to your business, but also public layers. So things like weather, things like fire, other publicly available layers that schedulers and planners can make executive planning decisions around. So very easy to do that with our out-of-the-box adapters. We have customers like Edenor, 4,000 technicians, our premier customer in Latin America. They are the leading, largest electric utility in Argentina. They were able to get their GIS layers into our system within a matter of hours, and just because we were able to point to those services. And we'll talk about those best practices and how we can make you as successful as possible when it comes to GIS. We have customers like Open Fiber that are doing planning decisions. So when we look at things like building those fiber lines and taking a look at where to build those fiber lines from point A to point B, they're able to not only create those point to points and model those scenarios using the over IT solution. However, if there are scenarios where they need to go ahead and leverage either third-party fiber line or their own, they're able to bring that in from a cost perspective and create those set of work orders, create those set of projects and schedule them. And then say there is an area that they need to work around. So if there's a boulder, if there's a certain dig site that they need to go ahead and denote for the system to route the fiber around, then they can very easily draw a polygon, as you'll see here in just a second, where now the algorithm can go ahead and route around that polygon. So now we've recognized that this is a dig site. We cannot route the fiber line in this area, and we go ahead and tell the system to recalculate the fiber line within a matter of seconds. Using those GIS services, you'll see that we're routing around those fiber lines. Those different colors denote whether that's the open fiber line or a third-party line that needs to be leveraged. And that takes into account from a cost perspective, from a work order duration perspective as well, since we need to collaborate with third-party companies. And then that goes ahead and creates those work orders in order to get scheduled. Now, if we look at other customers like San Diego Gas and Electric, so they are an innovator on the West Coast of United States when it comes to utilities. And they looked at us to go ahead and give them an offline first mobile solution that their technicians across electric, gas, distribution, transmission, customer service can go ahead and interact with, and can go ahead and do their job when it comes to offline. So you see here, they can go ahead and interact with those layers. They can make those layers offline ready, and they can get those situational awareness right from the map. So right here, they can denote which layers are offline. Their GIS team has gone ahead and configured those map packages to push out to the field. And very easily, that can go ahead and get sent out and be visible from an offline status. So you see on the right-hand side at the top, they're in an offline mode right now. Right now, they're back in online. But to the field, that intermittent connectivity shouldn't affect their job, their day-to-day job. They can still go ahead and interact with those layers. They can still do network tracing and redlining and take a look at those endpoints and take a look at those attributes, whether they be, specific dig depths or photos or other operational data that they need to do their job for, they can still interact with that in an offline state. So very powerful here, the San Diego solution, and the ability to go ahead and be contextual. So based on the work type, based on the asset type, different types of forms, different types of pictures are prompted for the individual, and it's a map centric approach. So that technician can go ahead and still complete their job and their day straight from the map. So very powerful, a lot of thought leadership. So we mentioned San Diego Gas and Electric. We mentioned Edenor. Now, Over IT has many different utility customers and multi-utility customers. So the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, DESFA, they are using Over IT together with their asset management system to create those work orders and do the planning when it comes to building those pipelines and maintaining those pipelines. We talked about open fiber. So this is a telco use case. So not only do we have expertise in electric and gas and water and wastewater, but also in telco. So you can really take a look at Over IT as a true partner that will bring those best practices. They will bring those project specific learnings from these different customers, and also the community of those customers that are open and willing to speak with you across many of your business challenges that most likely they have encountered. And Over IT has come up with a creative and innovative solution to go ahead and solve. Hera is a multi-utility company across water, wastewater, electric, gas. They have 2,000 technicians in Italy, and again, super innovative customer. We're open to connecting you with them. Italgas is also a customer with about 3,000 technicians in the field. They are a heavy GIS customer, especially when it comes to doing those leak surveys and mapping those actual routes that those technicians have done. And from a safety perspective, making sure that those technicians and crews have everything they need from a mapping perspective, and notifying the dispatchers if they're going into an area that's unsafe and they haven't heard from them in a while. We also work across transportation, so across railroad customers as well. So a lot of these cross-industry solutions can be brought into your business in order to solve those problems and challenges that you're seeing day to day. And we're excited to speak to you about those different customers and connect you with those different customers. Now, the third is the consultancy services. So since we do have those 50 GIS engineers in our Center of Excellence, many of them have come from Esri directly and have been employed by Esri. So they can help with things like software selection, infrastructure selection, migration from the geometric network to the utility network, and making sure that all those migration and different decision points are taken into account holistically to make your business successful. So a lot of different capabilities, but also from a consultancy perspective, we provide those thought leadership and best practices. These were the GIS requested topics. We went ahead and answered those for you. More than happy to go ahead and dive deeper. But this is the common set of questions we get from our customers, and you'll see the answers denoted right on the right here. This deck is also available on the microsite. So from a GIS best practices, this is what Over IT can bring to the table. There's a lot of different factors and decisions that need to be made from an implementation perspective. The good news is we're here to support you, and the GIS Center of Excellence team sits right along our customer success group throughout that implementation, shoulder to shoulder, making sure all your GIS implementation project go very smoothly. Now, the number one thing is from a audience perspective, who needs access to which data, what is their device type, and do they need permission to edit that data? So these are the types of questions that we ask during the discovery workshops in implementation to make this the smoothest, most successful implementation, and from a change management perspective, also make it easy for those users either in the field or the back office. Now, for those field users and the users that need access to offline packages, we recommend, based on our practices and our experiences with different customers, to keep those offline packages light. And this is a collaborative experience with our customers in order to figure out the best file size, how often those packages are updated, and how often to push it out to the field. For those emergency use cases, we always recommend to have that baseline 2 to 3 layer set of data in order to make the situational awareness decisions. So things like weather, things like fire, things like outage information that's coming from your outage management system. And we can pull and put on the map from an asset perspective. All this information is super helpful, but we don't want to burden both the dispatchers or the field when it comes to those mission critical, time sensitive situations. We really want to make it as easy as possible, and really just expose the relevant layers necessary to do their job. And then we manage the information sharing, so bringing in those public layers as necessary as well to do their job. Now, we want to shift gears here and give you some best practices that were learned from different projects. And the first project is the San Diego Gas and Electric project. So we first defined which users needed access to which layers and services. We discussed the process for pushing that data out in the field, making those changes, notifying those users. We defined the layers and the symbology files that San Diego Gas and Electric needed to interact with. This is a big one. Don't want to discount it. This is one that San Diego Gas and Electric was able to impact the product roadmap, and Over IT was able to bring this into our out-of-the-box product. So asset locations, because SAP did not have direct integration to GIS, and they're using SAP for their asset management system, many of their assets in the field were mislocated, and that means that they would send a crew and a technician on site only to find out that the asset was in the wrong location. So they're using Over IT as an intermediary solution to correct that GIS database with the most updated GIS locations for those assets. Very powerful here, and that saves their team a lot of time and development resources by leveraging out-of-the-box solutions from Over IT, again, offline first solutions in order to update those locations. The other one was, we'll call out a release that's coming out in the next product release in Q1 of next year, is the search for asset capability. So that means it's the ability in the field by address to search for all the affected meters, the assets, the work orders that are associated. So when they are at a customer site, from the map, without leaving the map, they can pull up all this situational awareness that's necessary to get their job done. So super powerful, very much a true partnership with San Diego Gas and Electric in order to improve the product roadmap that then impacts our other mission critical utility customers. Adenor, we mentioned this. This is our premier utility customer in South America. They are the leading electricity company in Argentina. 4,000 technicians in the field. Think about that scalability, that complexity that Over IT can support there. So there's a lot of different best practices here. The one that I'll call out to was just being able to work collaboratively with their GIS team. They were a very mature customer, already coming from another field service solution. They knew exactly which map packages and services both their schedulers and their field team needed to interact with. And like we mentioned before, within a matter of hours, they were able to publish those services and connect those services with over IT using those out of the box connectors. Super powerful, time to value, and just within a few emails going back and forth, we were able to get them live with those GIS services. And this is a customer that you've already spoken to. We're more than happy to connect you again. Now, as you're going through that transformational shift to the utility network, as you're migrating those assets from the geometric network to the utility network, do know that over IT has that experience. So working with customers like Italgas and Snam, we're able to go ahead and expose those assets and work with those updated GIS services to go ahead and make that seamless transition for you. So just know that even though this is newer technology, Esri is making continual updates on their end. We have a constant touch base with the Esri team in order to make sure that we're compliant with the latest database, the latest map services associated with that utility network in order to make your project the most successful. So that is over IT. Again, we're a leader in mission critical field service utility use cases. And through this session, the plan was for you to gain an understanding of the GIS capabilities and best practices that we bring to the table. We're here to answer any questions. Thank you, and we look very much forward to doing business with you.